What is cheaply made but sold at a ridiculous price? A lot flipped houses. Be careful when looking at recently remodeled houses. Most of these are cheap flips with nothing more than some new paint, flooring and appliances. It becomes very apparent when you actually view the house in person and the doors don't close right, the windows are old, and everything just feels cheap. New build houses in the UK, built by the lowest bidder, to the lowest standards possible, crammed in so densely that two detached houses can be less than 18 inches apart. The biggest scam is that the developers try to sell the house, but retain ownership of the land that it's built on, then charge rent for the land. For this they want a minimum of £350,000. Leasehold really is a horrible concept. Fine leasehold. This is the dumbest idea I've ever seen. 1 week prior to a closing in Illinois, our bank called us and said that the seller didn't disclose it was a leasehold property. It wasn't on any of the initial filings. They immediately turned our financing down. Even told us no other banks in the area would consider it and to walk away. I'll never forget learning that the movie theater I worked at paid $5 for a 24 pack of Dasani bottles. We charged $4.50 for one. The movie theater near me has a Starbucks built in with the same prices as other nearby Starbuckses. It's the cheapest drinks at the theater. Grey Goose vodka. Didn't they make the bottles taller so they would only fit on the top shelf? Ingenious. Barrettes, hair clips and other bits of plastic that hold your hair in place. I get these at dollar stores because the high-end pharmacies charge way too much. Pharmacies charge way too much on everything. My local pharmacy sells Mucinex for like $20 on the shelves. But if you ask the pharmacist for straight guaifenesin, it's $3. Same med. If you need a cough suppressant, you can buy Robitussin cough gels. I bleached my hair and needed scrunchies since they wouldn't do more damage. I could get 2 for $5 at retailers. Amazon sells bags of 50 for $5. Perfume or cologne, imagine how much it would be in the liters. Oh. Chrysler made a prototype turbine-powered car in the 1960s. It wasn't very efficient, as no turbines were in the 60s, and they bragged that they had run it on Chanel No. 5 at a car show in France. That had to be the most expensive liquid fuel any motor vehicle ever ran on. Ibuprofen at a hospital. Yeah, we just went and got this bottle from the dollar store for $4. Oh, that patient needs 2 of them? Sure. Charge their bill $88. Your dollar store might be included in this list if a bottle costs $4. Baby clothes are marked up by 1000% on average. No kidding. Buying clothes at Christmas for my niece, nephew, and stepson was flooring. Now we have another one on the way. I'm hoping hand-me-downs will be like 90% of the clothing we have for it. If you're not opposed, try thrifting. I have a 3-month-old and got most of their clothes at thrift shops. Most are barely used, and last trip I even got some with the tags on. All for about $1 item. I worked at Babies R Us back when it was still around and people would walk out with literal full shopping carts of clothes without paying, and they didn't do anything because it wasn't worth the effort to the business. Designer handbags. At least in recent years, to meet the demand of the newly rich, there's a huge industry of Chinese immigrant workers in Tuscany, Italy, who manufacture the bags there, so that it can bear the coveted Made in Italy label. They are perhaps not that cheaply made, but still not the value of the prices they command. I somehow ended up watching a few documentaries on the luxury leather business, and we might as well call 95% of what gets out of Italy slave leather. From the human to the environmental impact, it's a show even before you come to the stupid price tag. For the same price as an overpriced and mass-produced bag, I'm pretty sure you can find an artisan and work with them for a one-of-a-kind bag. Printer cartridges. I was tired of my ink cartridges drying out, so I bit the bullet and got a HP color laser. Has worked great for years. I knew the toner was pricey, but holy moly, it was like $400 for all HP cartridges. A little more than a new printer. I rolled the dice on some cheap Chinese knockoff toner from Amazon for like $30. And seems to be fine so far. So yay. Toner for laser printers too. Out of ink? Guess I'll just buy a new printer. Out of cyan ink? Now I'm not going to print this black and white paper. Lol, fun fact. The cartridge in new printers are mostly just 1-stroke 2 or 1-stroke 4 filled. Sodium chloride IV bags in hospitals in the United States. It costs less than $1 to make, but hospitals can charge over $200 plus per bag, $500 per bag or so I have seen on medical records. Every hospital is different due to shenanigans with various insurance companies. What you can literally buy them for like $5 each online. EP pens. They cost like $2 to make and then are sold for like $150. Paid $400 2 years ago. After 2 years, and with an expiration date looming, I start looking for opportunities to run into bees just so I can feel like I got my effing money's worth. Maybe I'll finally visit that botanical garden I've been wanting to check out during the spring. I made this joke the last time I saw my allergist and he laughed at first, but a few minutes later I saw him frantically searching for coupons. Bottled water. For real. Poland Spring, read up on it. Heavily treated groundwater. Water from potentially contaminated sources. The actual Poland Spring having gone dry years ago. The town of Freiburg's, a major supplier for Poland Spring. Water supply failing but Poland Spring water delivery kept right on track. Nestle is effing soulless. They have argued that clean water is not a human right. State officials carried out a 20-month investigation and concluded in December that the company doesn't seem to have valid rights for much of the water it's been drawing from the forest north of San Bernardino. But Nestle argued in a written response to the State Water Resources Control Board on Friday that it has rights to take at least 88 million gallons each year, nearly 3 times as much as it took in 2016. That stance conflicts sharply with state investigators' findings, and with arguments by Nestle's opponents that the company doesn't have any water rights at all in the national forest. The dispute stretches back more than a century to the creation of the national forest in 1893, and to an early bottling operation that began with a contract in 1909. Carbonated beverages and popcorn are what keep restaurants and movie theaters in business. The amount of actual soda syrup in a 20-ounce fountain drink is worth pennies. It's mostly water, and look at how much ice they add to the cup. It's a major profit center. And candy. Lots of candy. And candy. Lots of candy. Which also keeps dentists in business. Any cable, USB, HDMI etc. They cost pennies to make. Company I used to work for would give us cables at the price they purchased them for. I would get HDMI and cell phone cables that would retail at $15.20 for around $1 too. Where did the company get them from where it's that cheap? This is where most electronic retailers make their money. Computers and TVs have very little markups, but cables and accessories, and financing and services, are where they make their money. I worked at Best Buy and their employee discount was 5% over cost, so it was pretty easy to tell what was being marked up quite a bit. The amount of people that buy wires from electronics stores for $30.50/100 is still crazy. I guess it's mostly the older generation who get told they need an HDMI lead for their new TV, but don't realize they can go onto Amazon and get the exact same thing for $5 instead of $50. Yeah, but $5 for an HDMI cable isn't really that bad when you consider the costs of shipping and storage. The cable itself may cost pennies, but getting it to you costs more than the cable itself. Glasses. I watched a video on the sunglasses eyewear industry in middle school economics and have been scammed this entire time. I was a certified optician and ran a lens lab for Pearl Vision in the early 2000s. Our most expensive frames, excluding the weird Armani we carried, cost $20 $30 per frame. They sold for $200 $400 depending. Our cheapest frames cost $2 $3 each, and none sold for less $50. The lenses. That's a lot of markup. I started in a brand new store, and we had a brand new lab full of Essilor hardware. Latest and greatest at the time. Standard lenses. Nothing special, just the standard CR32 plastic in a typical prescription. They cost $2 or so and we charged $40 each. So a basic pair of glasses cost $8 in materials and was sold for $130. The worst markup was on the high-end lenses. At Pearl, at that time, the top end were the MTPROL lenses. Microthin polycarbonate aspheric lenses with anti-scratch and anti-reflective coating. Basically, if you have a strong prescription 3 or so, aspheric can make a much thinner and lighter lens that can give you the same vision a thicker traditional lens does. Add in anti-scratch, anti-reflective, and the cost of the lenses alone were around $400 for the customer. Pearl Vision's cost for the lens blanks? $23. The entire cost of the SLR equipment in the lens lab at my location was only $250,000. And we regularly sold $800 plus glasses. And the part that I really hate, Maine Medicare, at the time wouldn't provide coverage for anti-scratch coating. It was technically an upgrade. We couldn't buy lens blanks that didn't have it. My instructions were to strip the anti-scratch coating when making lenses for Maineca clients. I ran the lab. Guess what I never did? I'm a -8.25 and at almost 40 years old. I've only now hit the place where I can pay for my glasses in one payment. I'm even more grateful that my parents could afford to pay for my glasses as a kid. I don't think I got plastic lenses until I was in high school. Glass all the way. Wow. Imagine putting in extra labor and to prevent the customer gaining value that they haven't paid for. Someone once said they asked the company why they were selling their product for $200 if it costs $10 to make it, and the company responded because people buy them for $200. Reminds me of a guy who worked for Bethesda being asked why they don't make a new Elder Scrolls game. He answered pretty plainly, because people are still willing to buy Skyrim. Makeup that shit's produced cheap, especially the high-end brands. That's what that Kardashian did. Bought a makeup company and jacked up the price just by putting her name on it. Someone I know told me that her stuff is what's called private label branding or something like that. Basically she gets pre-made stuff that is sold to a bunch of different places and just changes the packaging. Most cosmetics in general basically, part of why most makeup stores have such relaxed return policies. Eyeshadow palettes cost like 20 cents each to manufacture and sell for $50. So how does one DIY that item? Not that it's not ridiculously marked up, but I used to be a manager at a popular makeup store and we had a program that would show what the price to make the product was, and a drugstore foundation that retails for $15 would be made for $1 and a high-end that retails for $50 would cost $15, so there can be differences between them. Many mattresses, especially memory foam ones. Most luxury brands with huge obvious logos on them. College textbooks on their 2nd to 100th edition. What's even worse is that on some editions, Pearson just gives you your textbook without binding. Just fine paper, like the pages are in a loose paper pile. At least they give you punched out holes so you can put them in a binder. But for FS sake, $130 for this cheap pricks. Oh. And having to pay like $80 for online access. That only lasts for the semester, not permanent ownership. I hope they die out soon. Honestly, the cheap bastards are going to make us pay for their book, their online portal, and the binding for a book that immediately loses its resale value upon using the access code for the online portal. It's annoying because they could keep the same textbook and allow students to pass them on to the next generation of college students, but no, they have to create a new book each time and make it a requirement to have that new book. There was a student-run shop on my campus that would buy your old textbooks back off you at the end of the year, then sell them on to the next year's students. The actual differences between editions were so tiny that there was never much point paying full price for the most recent when you could have an older version. I mean, I've had professors that told us which older editions would work, but next generation wouldn't fly for a lot of subjects. A lot of material is very new. Glaucoma eye drops, about $379 for a tiny bottle of the prescription treatment. You could fly to a country like India and get a bunch of bottles, same if not better quality, and fly back and it would save you money. Would have to be like a dozen or more, but you get the point. This reminds me of a story from last year. It's cheaper for someone in India to fly round trip to Dubai to buy an iPhone 12 than it is to just buy one locally. Insulin. It's criminal how much they charge compared to the manufacturing costs. Not just that, but the fact that the dude that did the research just gave away the patent, not like they're recouping research costs. Babies. Both adopting and buying a baby on the black market takes serious money. The biggest cost associated with a baby is the ongoing maintenance costs, and the years it siphons off your life in the crying phase. Volkswagen ignition cylinders. When I worked at VW, we had to constantly order ignition switches because either they are cheaply designed or cheaply made. So when we would place the order from Volkswagen North America, It gets shipped directly from the manufacturer, either Huff or Valio, and they would include the invoice in the box. Well, VW would charge the dealerships $99.95 and set MSRP at $129.95. The invoice from the manufacturer to VW showed cost to VW being $14.95. Most fast fashion. A pair of jeans that costs $4 to produce but costs $40 for you to buy is a 1000% markup. I got a pair of jeans when I visited America. I paid maybe $30 for them and wore them for 10 years. Best jeans I've ever owned. They were threadbare by the time I was ready to part with them. I wasn't ever able to find the brand online when I wanted to replace them. Wish I'd gotten multiple pairs. Diamonds. Natural diamonds are made for free in nature and harvested using slave labor. Lab-created diamonds still cost 45% less. Reddit gold. Reddit platinum. No. Those $350 Nikes cost maximum $20 to make. Shipping included. Oh. And the $1,500 ones also cost about $20 to make. Yeah, but those slaves Nike hires aren't going to whip themselves. You know why Nike is so woke? So you won't notice they have a huge plantation full of slaves in 2021. Homeopathic pills. There is nothing in it. No money used for clinical trials. Sold for around €7-10 per box. Cripes. We make them often at home here in France. 250 grams of flour. 2 eggs, some milk, maybe butter. You get 25 crepes for what? €4 of groceries. Some street foods in Paris or other big cities will sell them €4 or €5 sometimes. And they buy the ingredients in big bulks at cheaper prices, so they make an even bigger margin. They make €100 of crepes for €3 of batter and add the toppings. Let's say €7 for a pot of Nutella, sugar and lemon or whatever. €100 for €10. Stonks. It's well known by people who work in restaurants in France that crepes are highly profitable. Beats headphones cost $17 to make and are sold for $100, $500. That's insane. I will live and die by Sennheiser cans. And Bose earbuds. Years of dropping my HD6XX on the ground and they are still perfect. I think their cost is under $15 now. Truly a garbage product. You're telling me there's no room to move on pasta? Politicians. French fries, chips, whatever you want to call them. McDonald's buys its potatoes at around 20 cents to the pound. You can get about 4 medium fries, 1.79, out of a pound of potatoes. Even if transport, labor, and other overhead triples the cost, that's still a profit margin well over 1000%. Margins on soda are even higher, while burgers and other items have more ingredients and complexity and are thus more expensive to produce. Wedding cakes. Wedding cakes, anything related to a wedding is double to 10x the normal cost.